I'm out at the lumber yard and I'm basically pricing lumber for my deck. I just need to get an idea of what it's going to cost to build it so that I can finish putting my plan together. And I will update you with the total cost of the garage deck once I have all the information. We just got back from the hardware store. The 11% sale is going on. I got everything I need to frame the loft, including the staircase to make it easily accessible. All that's left is to get the wood to top the loft, and we'll go back and get that on a second trip. I didn't want to overload the van any more than I had to. Got all my mounting hardware over on the right. I'm ready to start building the loft, and a couple of things have to happen. Please excuse the clutter in the shop. 8 foot comes out to about here, so I'm going to have to start by removing this cabinet unit and temporarily setting it out of the way. On the other side of the garage, 8 foot comes out about right there on those cabinets, so that wall cabinet has to come out. Nothing else is mounted. Everything else in the shop is on wheels or is easily movable, so I'll be able to get it out of the way. But I'm going to go ahead and get those things tore down, and then we'll begin building the frame. I've got the cabinet off the wall above the lathe. I just have it sitting on the floor down there. And as you come back around the shop, I have the countertop cleaned off, and I'm ready to remove the countertop. I've got the countertop completely removed, and now I need to work on unmounting these cabinets from the wall. I'm in the process of cutting the corner post to the proper length. That's number 3. Here's number 1 and 2. I've got one more left to cut. Once it's cut, I'm going to go ahead and assemble the basic frame of the deck here in the larger garage. I've got all of the pieces from my loft cut to length. They're scattered around the garage right now, but that's okay. There is a rhyme and reason to this mess. I'm going to go ahead now and start assembling the frame for the loft. I've got the loft mocked up, and it's just held together by some clamps. I'm getting ready to drill some holes and insert some 1/2-inch carriage bolts. The frame for my loft is finished. I've drilled holes through all the legs. Everything has been bolted down. I finger tightened the bolts with nuts and washers. I checked everything, and it is perfectly square and true. What's left now is to go ahead and disassemble it, flip it over, and install it in the back of the shop. I have removed the front and back rails from the loft frame. My son came over this evening, and instead of me having to disassemble the entire thing to get into the shop, we went ahead and tightened up the bolts on the side rails. He and I are going to carry one side rail at a time out into the driveway, flip it over, and then carry it into the shop and lean it against the wall. I'll be able to come back then and attach my front and back rails, and then I'll get it lag bolted to the walls for a little extra support. We've got the 2 frames moved into the shop and leaning against the walls. Next up, we're going to get the back and front frames attached, get it squared back up, and then I'll go ahead and lag bolt it to the wall studs. All right, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is I've got the back brace on the frame. The bad news is I put it on upside down. So I'm going to not film this part, but I'm going to disconnect the back brace, flip it over, and reinstall it. Because the reason why I have to is I don't know how well you can see it in the photo or in the film, but see how far away from the wall it is over there? That's because this side has two by sixes, and this side only has one because there's an offset in the garage. And with flipping the board upside down, it pushes this set of braces in toward the middle of the garage. I flip them over, it pushes this set of braces back out toward the wall and widens the underside of the loft. So it's always fun. Let's get this fixed. I've got the back brace flipped over and rebolted. Everything's tightened down. I slid it back against the wall, and I'm ready for the front piece now. And you can see I've got it laying right here. I've actually got it clamped on the left and on the right, and that's how I plan to raise it, is one side a little bit reclamp, next side reclamp. What you might also notice is my drill press. I hope I didn't damage it. That son of a gun, that's a 2x8. That's two 2x8s together, and they're 12 foot long, and they weigh a blue ton. And it was all I could do to lift them, and I hit my drill press, knocked it over onto my lathe. I don't think I've done any damage, but until I get this up in the air where I can sort it out, I really won't know. Keep your fingers crossed for me, and I'll give you an update here in a minute. But we're going to go ahead and film the raising of the front beams. I'm very happy to say that the front brace is now installed, and I want to let you know that I put that one on the right way the first time. I've inspected my drill press, and I've inspected my lathe, and other than some scratches, I don't really see any damage. I won't 100% know until the next time I use them, but keep your fingers crossed for me, and hopefully there was no irreparable damage. Let me take you inside the brace and show you what I've done to bolt these together. I've used 1/2-inch bolts, 2 from the front and 2 from the side, into a solid 4x6. The 4x6 is treated, the rest of the wood is just yellow pine. One thing I neglected to do, and it was just an oversight, is I didn't have lock washers to put on between the fender washer and the nut. I'm going to pick a bag of those up, and I'll come back and go ahead and add those. That's not a big deal. Next up for me is I need to get this braced to the wall all the way around. And once it's braced to the wall, I'll start putting my stringers or runners down the middle so that I can begin attaching the joist. This evening I went and used 1/2-inch by 7-inch lag bolts, and I lag bolted this frame to the walls of the garage, hitting every stud in the garage. So I've got a nice tight fit. Each of the legs has been leveled, and I'm ready now to start working on the staircase. I've put 2 of the stringers in. There's 22.5 inches between them, and the first one is 34 inches off the wall. This is where I'm going to hang the staircase, and then the rest of the stringers I'll just center off of these all the way across the rest of the garage. Cross members all installed. Everything is on 16-inch centers until you get to this set of cross members. They're on 22.5-inch center. That's because the ladder is going to fit in there. Next up, a couple of cross members to support the ladder, and we'll get it installed. I've got the brace put in for the ladder. I went ahead and did a double brace, and then I've got a stringer running from the back of the brace to the back of the frame. And then you'll see these pieces of wood hanging down. Those are to hold the ladder in place while I secure it. I've also gone ahead and slid a 3/4 inch piece of tongue and groove plywood up on top just temporarily to give me something to kneel on, because I think it'll be easier to attach the ladder from the top than it will from underneath. My stairs are complete. All that's left to do is to trim the bottom of the stairs so that they lay flat on the floor. I'm really happy with how things are progressing with the loft. It's coming along really well. The only major thing I have left to do is to deck it, and I'm using some 3/4 inch tongue and groove plywood like they would use inside of a house and to put tile on. So it's some pretty heavy duty stuff. I have a few small odd jobs to do that I'm going to work on today, and it's really simple stuff like I've got some shims I need to cut off, where I shimmed out the ladder. I had some screws that were 3.5 inches long, and I really needed about 2 3/4, but instead of paying for screws, I thought, what the heck? I went ahead and used the longer screws, and I'll take the Dremel tool and just trim them off level with the studs. I need to replace or actually not replace, I need to install the lock washers where I forgot to put lock washers up at my post, and I've got the lock washers to do that. And the final thing I need to do is on my ladder, that is an 8-foot ladder, and the loft is about 7'6", 7'7" inches tall. So I've got to cut off the bottom of the ladder so that it lays perfectly flat on the floor. I'm going to do the odd jobs today, and hopefully I get done in plenty of time to get started on the decking. I'll keep you guys posted. I finished all the odd jobs on my loft, and that includes cutting the ends of the ladder off to make it sit squarely on the floor. At this point, I'm ready to go back up top and start decking, and once that's finished, my loft will be done. I've driven a screw halfway in at both the front and the back of the loft, and what this will allow me to do is shoot screws right along the string, and they should go right down the center of the stringer below. This is just a way for me to keep from missing the stringer, and then you look up and there's a bunch of screws sticking through the bottom of your deck, and it's not really attached to the frame. I don't want to drive the screws so far down that they go below the surface, but I want to make sure that there's not any part of the screw sticking up, so that if I'm sliding something along the top of this loft, I don't want it to be able to catch on the head of a screw. All that's left is to tack down the final board and cut out the opening for the staircase, and we'll be finished. My loft is finished. I thought it would take a couple of minutes and kind of show you around, and then I've got to get the camera turned off and get the shop put back in order, because moving things around to make this happen, it's destroyed. I ended up placing the deck 3 inches away from the wall on the house side. The reason why I did this is my plan is to put my dust collector as well as my compressor up on the deck, and they're both going to cause vibration, which would be transferred into this wall, hence into the master bedroom on the other side of the wall. By leaving this gap, I'll have very little of the vibration noise from the loft transferred into the home. Working beneath the loft should not be a problem. At its lowest point, it's 83 inches off the floor. That puts it 1 inch shy of 7 feet. I added a pull-down staircase. And this will give me easy access to the loft. Let's go on up. From the surface of the loft to the ceiling is 4 foot 6 inches. Side to side, it's 11 foot 8 inches, and front to back, it's 8 foot 6 inches. Now, I don't plan to use this as work area. I plan to use it strictly for storage. I believe I'll put some shelving on the far right-hand side, or your left. Over here on the right side, your right, I'm going to put my dust collector and my compressor, and I'm hoping to put some storage along the back for longer boards. Now, I can't stand fully upright, being only 4 foot 6 inches, but since this will be strictly for storage, I really don't see that as an issue. I'd really like to thank everybody for joining me for this build. I think this is going to be a great addition to the shop. You might notice I've already started putting a few things up there. At the beginning of the video, I was in the lumber store pricing materials for this build, and I told you that I would let you know what the final cost was. And I had to wait till the end because I had overbought. I had a couple of too many boards, and I bought some 2 3/4 inch screws, and I ended up having some 3 inch, so I used mine and cut them off, and I took those back. Bottom line, this build cost me $343.50. That includes a $99.99 staircase. So I think that is a fantastic price for what I got. All this additional space is about $250. That is roughly 8 by 12, so that's a lot of space up there. So it was worth every penny of it. I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop today. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop,